Welcome to the Freedom CEO podcast. It's about becoming the chief decision maker over your life in order to step into a life of freedom. From business, health, wealth, charity, and giving back to just doing life on your own terms. I am your host, Shay Imbidiata. I am an award-winning activist, change maker, and a multi-facet impact entrepreneur with over a decade of experience in business, philanthropy, and health and wellness. In this space, I'm going to be bringing you insights, not just from me, but from incredible thought leaders around the globe to help you start making decisions towards living a life of freedom so you can live a life you love. Are you ready, guys? Because we are going all in. Sandy MacKay has been in the real estate industry for over 10 years. As an experienced investor, a real estate entrepreneur, and a visionary for building generational wealth through real estate. Sandy's multi-million-dollar businesses include a real estate team, which sells close to 300 units a year, a property management company, and an investment company that deploys multi-residential, affordable housing, mixed use, and development opportunities. All this success doesn't come without the disciplines required in daily life. Sandy and I get into his life hacks and how he is also helping others achieve financial freedom through building generational wealth and loving their life along the way. Sandy, welcome to the Freedom CEO podcast. So happy to have you on my show today.
Thanks, Shay. Love the branding around this. Love the name, and it resonates with me a lot. So I'm super excited to see what we come up with here today and add as much value as we can in our time here together.
Well, I love it. And I have so much respect for you as a colleague in the real estate industry. I know you've been in it now for over 10 years. And in that, I'm going to call it that shorter period of time, you've made some great strides in the industry. And you probably, I don't know if I've ever said this to you, but I actually think you're one of the smartest realtors that I know. And I also get to watch from afar a bit. So more than just a realtor though, you share so much online about leveling up your health mindset. And so that was what really intrigued me, where I'm like, okay, Sandy, I got to have you on the show. We can talk about some business. We can biohack. We can talk investment strategy. Like you said, there's so many different areas that we can go. So I think maybe for some people that don't know you, I would love to just start with a bit of your journey. I know that you started out really as a real estate investor before you became a realtor. And so maybe take us back down memory lane.
Yeah, let's do that. Thanks for the kind words there. I'm not sure that I'm that smart. I think I've learned from a lot of smart people, and that's probably made me look a little smarter than I am. But I certainly, well, let's go back to the beginning. I certainly didn't start out that smart, I don't think. I always, prior to real estate, really, really quick, I had like somewhere in beneath me, inside of me, there was like an entrepreneurial spirit, I think there, and it was trying to come out, but not really coming out. And I was kind of stuck. This is like early part of my 20s and into the mid 20s even, where I was kind of lost a little bit, not really knowing what I wanted to do. I was a golf pro. That was my only other real sort of, it wasn't very long, but a career of some sorts that I was actually kind of excited about at one time. But it was everything else that I was doing kind of felt like, the world's pushing me towards being having a job and doing the traditional route of making it in life. And it just was nothing was exciting me. I didn't really, I went to university, but wasn't excited about what I was taking. Didn't see the application of it in real life. And kind of struggled with that for a while. Like it was a tough time going through that, not really understanding where I fit in. And somewhere along the line, I came across this book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Totally changed my whole mindset on life. And I'm sure a lot of your listeners have heard or read that book, and just completely transformed my life. I picked it up, audio version, and binged it. I forget how long it is. It's probably 10 hours or something. And I just went through it in a night. Like I stayed up super late the one night. I was like, I can't get enough of this. This resonated with me so well. And through that, he does a lot of real estate sort of work, Robert Kiyosaki, and talks a lot about that in that book. And the cash flow quadrant really is probably the number one thing that I think of when I talk about this. It's the going from employee mindset to self-employed, or then over the other side, or the right side of that diagram, business owner or an investor. And so in that whole experience of diving into that, I kind of thought, okay, I got to find a way to get more on the business owner and investor side of things. And real estate, I was probably naive in a lot of ways, trying to go after some things a little too fast, but I really wanted to get to that investor side, and didn't really have money to speak of, but I thought that there was a path there somehow through real estate. And my wife and I both she was a girlfriend at the time, but we were both kind of inspired by that. We ended up at a Rich Dad Poor Dad seminar, these big seminars that come through cities like Toronto every once in a while, and went to a free event, which turned into a weekend event of, it was only a couple $100. And then it didn't turn into like a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 investment that we could have done. But a lot of people do go that route, which we didn't do, but we, saw people doing that. So, wow, there's got to be some money in this game if they're able to charge that much money for people to invest in their education in this. So we started taking some small actions, and went and invested in a few other little courses, and started learning about wholesaling real estate, how we could, and other ways of creatively investing in real estate when you don't have much money. And short version of all that is that led to us wholesaling some properties. Wholesaled one property in Burlington, Ontario that we earned $25,000 on. Biggest paycheck of my life. I was like, oh my God, $25,000. That's like, that's like realtor money. Come on. And we did that deal, and the investor who bought the property from us, super quick version of what wholesaling is, if your listeners don't know, is you put a property under contract with the seller. Basically, you sell that contract to an investor. So the investor is willing to pay us a higher number for that contract because it's a good investment. And done right, you're helping the seller out of a tough situation too, because they're usually distressed and really, really, really motivated. Usually there's a time crunch. This seller needed to get out of there, and ideally in like 15 days, they got out in 7 days through our investor. But our investor bought the property. This is a big aha for me in my life, because that investor bought it and flipped it, made like $200,000 on it. And they came to us after, and they're like, you guys only made $25,000 on this thing. What? You should have like partnered with us. We would have given you half the deal. You had the incredible opportunity. Should have partnered with you. And we're like doing the math. Like, we could have made like 6 figures on that deal. Holy crap. That would have been even nicer. So that was a big lesson learned there.
What location was that? Where was
Burlington, Ontario.
Burlington, wow.
Street name. I can't remember the street name now. But if you know Burlington, Ontario, I know you do. But if your listeners know it, the price point was, they'll know it's a good deal when I say the price point, which was a detached house, 4-bedroom house, nice big lot. I can't remember the dimensions, but big lot. The investor bought it from us for $270,000. We had it for $245 or $240. Yeah. This is going back over 10 years ago, but still those numbers are that property's got to be worth $1 million plus nowadays already, just probably in the state that it was in. Right. Yeah. So it was a great deal. We took that money, we bought our first duplex, and 5% down. Another one that seems cheap now is $270,000 in Oshawa. And then we met, started going to all these investor events. We met a guy, Mark Loeffler, one of my early mentors in real estate. He got me into the realtor side of things. He said, hey, come up to Hamilton. This is the place to be. And all these opportunities out here, the values there, there's great properties. You can buy properties for even less than $200,000. It's crazy. And by the way, you should just stop doing this wholesaling thing. Just get your license, and you can still do the tough deals, but like maybe you can sell some easier ones too here and there, and you don't have to always find that diamond in a rough. So we did that, and I wanted to do a lot of things he did. This is one of the smart things I've done in life in hindsight. I didn't really know at the time, but just getting around people that are doing things at a way higher level than myself, and just being open to understanding and learning what they're doing, and being having an open mind, and wanting to learn and soak up that knowledge. He was about my age now at the time. I'm 37. and he had like apartment buildings and he was raising all this money to buy real estate with. And I was like, man, like, how is this guy doing this? He's so young and he's also got a family. He's doing all these things. I'm like, it's incredible. I want to do a lot of that. And so, so I decided to join up with him, and I worked with him for 2 years. Learned tons and tons about real estate, realtor side, real estate investor side. And just got me really motivated and hooked to this industry. And actually learned that I really, really enjoyed the sales side. And when we parted ways mutually and in a good way, I went on to grow our own team and really started from right away. I'm like, I want this to be a team. I don't want to necessarily, I actually love the sales side of it. I don't love doing like 100 sales a year, but I like the here and there doing some sales. Sure. I like the rush of it. But I also want some more leverage. I don't want this to be something that is a business that I could be super involved in if I want to, but I also could leverage myself out of it or sell it even one day.
Totally.
And so that was kind of my mindset from the start. We took it from there. Long story short, in the past 7 years of doing that is we've screwed up a ton. And the more we screw up, the more we grow and get more uncomfortable and keep screwing up. We've experienced the last really interesting market the last couple of years, which has taught us all sorts of new lessons that we weren't learning before. So it's kind of just been a evolution of learning and growing, which is really what probably my number one lesson in all that was that I kind of got used to doing that, being uncomfortable and growing and learning a lot through the process and then tweaking things and just not giving up when the challenges arise, because there's so many challenges in any entrepreneurial journey. And I just really believe you can take those opportunities as learning opportunities, or you can take them as a reason to give up. And I don't ever want to take them as a reason to give up. And so that's kind of been my motto. And we built our team up we've got upwards of close to 300 sales in a year. I've never got over 300, but that's kind of our next big target to hit. Hopefully,
which is soon. Amazing. And like, that's not a small number. So, that's amazing.
Yeah. It's a number we haven't quite hit that yet. So it's our next target, but we'll get there soon. And then we launched a brokerage too in two and a half years ago now. Keller Williams franchise.
Yeah. During COVID, an easy time.
It had pros and cons. We did launch it in Vaughan, which is about an hour away from where I live. And so it did save me on some fuel costs and driving time, but it certainly had some unique challenges to overcome. Couldn't throw, training events or things like that. And so we had to do a lot of virtual meetings and we launched that brokerage with about 50 agents right at the beginning. Like a lot of them I'd never met in person. So it was crazy. And, through all that, I learned so much about the importance of your own personal growth and that being the focus, and really your businesses can all only grow to as much as you grow personally. And, personal growth there's so many things involved in that, which is kind of what got me excited in all these different areas. Health, health alone is such a massive topic to gain some understanding around. And, but I always find like the more I dive deep on that and get better there, I show up better as a leader of my businesses, and it directly relates. So it's some of the things, those are some of the things that got me really excited and inspired right now. That was a really long-winded answer, I know, on the
No. I love it. Well, it's funny because you actually answered some things that I wanted to talk to you about today that you've addressed already. And as I listen to you talk, and we will get into the health component, because I'm a huge believer that the more you increase your discipline and your evolvement, your optimization around health, that yes, your success follows that, not just in your business, but your relationships, just overall. But as you're sharing just kind of your journey, and one of the things I think I've admired about watching your journey over the last few years, because I think you and I really only connected around 2-3 years ago. Yeah, of COVID. Yeah. And, you know, we knew somebody mutual in common who also speaks very, very highly of you and kept saying, you know, you got to talk to Sandy, you got to connect with Sandy. And so since then, and following just your journey, you are very open. And I'm even going to say the word vulnerable, even already today. You know, you're the first to say we've messed up many times, but we're not willing to try. And that's the way that you fail forward, you learn forward. And you've been consistent in that over the years. Like, you can see that, and you aligning yourself with the right people to put yourself in circles that, like you said, people who have achieved that success so that you can learn and be pulled up. So the question I want to ask you is, if you were to go back and start all over again, learning what you've done now with the roller coasters of lessons and joys and mistakes, you've had mentors along the way. What would you say is maybe one thing that you would have done differently in your journey?
Well, great question. There's a lot of things probably. So I'm going to pick one that comes to mind today. Honestly, if you ask me the same question tomorrow, I might have a different answer, but there's a few things that stand out for sure. There's a few things that really stand out for me. One, it's funny. Some of the things that I think I would have done differently are some of the things I do now, and people even know me for. Mm-hmm. But I would have done them quicker or more, more purposeful. And I think, we kind of talked about who you hang around with. I'm not going to say that because we're going to talk about that, but that's certainly up there. And one of the answers I would give most commonly around this question is just be really, really purposeful about who you're hanging around with, and be okay with changing that up from time to time. Like, be okay to kind of, have that peer group or that business relationships that were good and helped everyone there get to where they are, but maybe not the best for your next stage of life or business. Totally. I'll leave it at that, but that's one thing I think is really important. The thing that comes to mind currently for me around that question, though, is something that people always say I'm good at, but I just would have done it even faster and probably at a more purposeful level, which is just being open to leveraging people and resources and technology, and doing that at a much higher level earlier on, and really getting building a habit out of looking to leverage first before doing things on my own. I have learned that pretty well. I think, like I said, a lot of people comment on me being good at that, but I was not always good at that. I think especially early on in my career, I was decent at getting stuff done, but I'm not necessarily, this is more just me personally, I'm not that great at, give me a whole bunch of things and I'm going to get them all done. Not necessarily that person. I'm not like just keep throwing stuff at me. I'll just do it.
I think that's like most men in general.
Yeah.
So you've got that going for you. Yeah.
Eventually, people hit their capacity, right? Whatever that is. And sure. I think I just would have looked to build more awareness around that earlier on, and looked for ways to ask for help more. Actually, that's a better answer. I think it's about it. For me, it hasn't been a challenge around necessarily finding I can find money and tools and resources and things to do stuff, but I haven't been great at asking for help purposefully enough around these things. And there's two parts to leverage. There's actually like understanding how you can utilize things, but then it's also asking others to help. And actually, that's kind of intertwines my two answers. There was being around the right people, but then also asking them for help as you're trying to scale up and leverage and add on all these resources and stuff. There's just so many things that go wrong and inevitably go wrong. And you need to, sometimes you're just one question or one ask away from solving it. You don't always have to sit there in your, alone in your house or in your office or something, trying to figure it out. It's usually not where the answer is. The best and quickest way to get your answer is to just ask someone. And that's kind of a who, not how concept. It's one of the books I reference a lot is who, not how. And transitioning that question, that common question in your mind, from a how question into a who or what.
Yeah.
The best answers are in who or what questions, not how. Like,
Totally.
how do I lose weight? I know we're talking about health stuff a lot already, but how do I lose weight, or how do I gain muscle, or those are tough questions to answer, and it doesn't typically lead you to the results you're looking for. But who do I need to hang around with more to lose weight, or who do I need to hang around with less so I can lose some weight,
Right.
or what tools are out there for me to tap into to help me do whatever I'm trying to do. That's what I would have done more earlier on. And it would have, because that's all exponential growth when you start tapping into that.
Totally.
And so the few years I lost on that would have, equate to like 10 years right now if I would have just tapped into that sooner.
Yeah. So, okay, let me ask you, keeping on this idea of leverage. And I was actually just a part of a women's wealthy women vault that basically is around financial literacy for women. And as you know, there's many women who they don't know anything about money and things like words like debt, even for men as well. But there are people that they hear the word debt and they get really scared and they hate it. Whereas people like you and me educate on the difference between good debt and bad debt and leverage and reframing that around the whole money thing. So what I want to ask you is, how right now are you using leverage, or what are you applying? Because that can mean so many different things. But when you think of like right now, it could be in real estate, it could be in investment, it could be in health. How are you using different opportunities where you're like looking for leverage to evolve to the next level of your growth?
Well, love that question. I'll give a few examples for sure that I'm using that on a few of those different categories. One of them for sure is, well, one thing we teach a lot about in the real estate side of things and the financial, like actual money side, is how people can leverage usually their home. Like that's how most people get involved in real estate as an investment vehicle to start with, is usually they're tapping into some equity in their current home and using it to go buy an investment property. That's where at least 50% plus of our investor clients that we work with are gaining their money from to go buy a second or third or fourth or fifth property. Very often starts in their personal residence. And as Canadians, there's a lot of people don't really know the differences between the US information around that, the Canadian information. It's a little bit different in how things work. As Canadians, we are able to, currently at least, it's tax-free, all our money from our personal residence. That's a little different from the US. We can actually use that money from our primary residence, that on a home equity line of credit, if we went and bought an investment property. A lot of people don't realize that interest on that home equity line can actually be a tax deduction. And so there's some benefits to that. I talked to a lot of people who have kids and talked to them about the difference between using, buying another investment property versus maybe you end up paying some interest on that money that you're taking out, but instead of paying on an RESP, for example, that you're already paying a couple $100 a month for a child, you're only going to end up with about 60 grand by the time they're 18 for school. Well, if you instead paid $200 towards that money every month they're using to go buy an investment property, that investment property in the next 15 years is going to be worth 500 grand, $1 million, $1.5 million, a lot more than 60 grand. And so you're setting your kids up for such a bigger opportunity, however you want to utilize that strategy. But accessing equity from your line of credit on your home first, when used appropriately, is an amazing opportunity that I see not enough people tapping into. I also see people tapping into it for silly reasons. So you have to be, know what you're doing with that to use it appropriately. Totally. But it's a great opportunity when used appropriately. It's a good debt. It's a source of good debt. It can be. So that's one of the things that I think just drastically underutilized for Canadians, especially. ChatGPT, we could probably go on a whole
Tell me, what are you doing?
Thing on that.
I'm
leveraging that like crazy.
Do you like it?
Oh yeah, I have. Whether I like it or not, I don't even think it matters because I'm going to use it. Because if I don't use it, I feel like I'm going to die a slow death, and I don't want to be the person who didn't like the internet and just said I'm not going to use the internet. That's stupid. I see ChatGPT along those lines as something that is that disruptive, and I think it's one of the best things I like about it is it really trains us to ask better questions. And so because the better prompts you give it, the better results you're going to get, which is just a metaphor for life in general. If the better questions you have going through your mind, the better results you're going to get in life. And love that about ChatGPT. Although I also kind of feel like I lose an advantage because I think everyone can ask better questions now, and everyone's going to learn that. So there's going to be a race to who can come up with the best questions to ask it. But there's so many different tools in there. Like it's basically an executive assistant for everyone if they use it appropriately. There's so many different, as we're talking about leverage, like people and resources and stuff. You can use ChatGPT and as a replacement for a lot of those things, and it's free. There's a whole bunch of extensions. You can use it within your email inbox to sort, filter, and really help a really busy email account get a lot less busy on autopilot.
And write your emails for you.
Write your emails for you. For content creation, it's incredible. There's even like add-on extensions to ChatGPT that can help it be like more of a human-looking blog post. If you were to use ChatGPT to run write a blog post for you, the basic version that it comes up with isn't quite there yet. Typically, it's a good starting point, but you often need to add on your own little flavor to it. Which is great, but you can even get an extension to make it more a human sounding post. So there's
you can even write that. Like I've used it where, I don't know, whatever. And we could even talk about this. This is a real example, but one of the new biohacking hot kind of buzzwords, if you will, are more so in the States than Canada, but are peptides. And so I actually put into the chat just to be like, okay, what are they going to come up with for like a blog post on the benefits of peptides? And I was playing around with like training it. So I wanted to throw some humor into it just to see what it would do. So I was like, rewrite this post and make it more funny. And then of course it like wrote this whole script. So it's pretty wild. Like, as you're saying, the better you're able to prompt it with your questions, and the more you utilize it, actually starts to sound more like yourself, which is pretty crazy.
I like, on that note of like, asking it to be funnier and all that too. I don't like it to act like me because I'm not that funny. But if you tell it to act like, I don't know who, Chris Rock, Will Ferrell, someone that's actually funny, you can just tell it, say it in a voice like Chris Rock would say it, and it'll spit out something closely related to. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's wild.
Yeah, I love the applications of that. There's just endless applications for it.
It is. So, Sandy, let me ask you, because even still, I mean, people who are tuning in and listening can see for themselves, hear for themselves that you are a smart guy. You've opened up offices, you've got a big team, you're doing 300 transactions, like just in and around, over 100 agents. So when you think of yourself in the real estate industry, either as a realtor or as a team lead or broker owner even, how are you preparing for the integration further? Like not just around the chat GTV, but like AI in general, and how that is going to change the future of real estate?
Well, I don't have the answer to exactly how it's going to change the future. I know it's going to change a lot of things. It's an absolute disruptor. The thing that's challenging with like disruptors, quote unquote, now is that they're a disruptor today and they're getting disrupted tomorrow, right? Like things change so fast. And so I think it's difficult to like even suggest like ChatGPT might be a dime a dozen in a year from now. There might be 10 other versions of it. And there might be, so, it's a really interesting time. I think, some of there's all these new things out there that in some ways can become distractions when you don't have the core like foundational pieces set in stone. I think that's one thing to consider, is that you still need to work on, there's still foundational things in life that are important to know and understand and utilize. And, good quality communication, I don't think you can ever get good enough at, being able to talk to people, to present things in public, to be able to write relatively well and understand marketing concepts, basic marketing concepts of how to write copywriting. I think all those things are so important, especially as entrepreneurs or real estate investors or realtors. There's so many good uses of that. And just because ChatGPT or some other tool can like totally automate that for you,
yeah,
you miss out on some of the lessons that you're going to get from trying to figure it out yourself. And I still think those are applicable, probably always going to be applicable. So I still think there's a lot of value in learning some of these core foundational important things in life. But I guess to answer your question, how are we keeping up with it? Honestly, my answer comes back to another foundational thing we were talking about, which is who you hang around with. I'm not like Mr. Tech Wizard by any means. I'm reasonable at tech. I like to stay relatively informed on what's going on. But I can pull up a YouTube video, gazillion YouTube videos right now of way smarter people that know way more about ChatGPT, or way more about AI, or whatever new car is coming out that's got some AI built in, or electric and all that stuff. I'm never going to know all this stuff. Nobody is. I'm not going to be an expert on all these different things. So I can have a general understanding of it, and I think that's probably where I'm going to end up living in, a pretty good understanding of all of it. And I'm curious about it all, but I need to have people around me that are going to be like experts on certain things. That's what I've kind of concluded is I need those people around. And so I'm looking to, as we're hiring and we're looking to get into business with new partnerships and that sort of thing, I would be very hesitant to get into business with someone who's not also curious about this stuff and wanting to grow their own knowledge around it, and ideally be even like insanely curious and wanting to really go deep on some of these things, so that would really add a lot of value to myself, but also whatever organizations that we're going to work together on, and really help us grow. So that's what I think about. It's just who are we getting into business with, and how good are they at this stuff? Because I'm not ever going to be amazing at this stuff, I don't think. Does that answer the question?
No, and you can't do everything, right? So you have to decide, can somebody else do it better, quicker, and understand that better than me? And if the answer is yes, obviously, you're going to outsource that. You just want to make sure, like you said, you've got the right people who can do that.
That's it. And then I think this is for me, but this might be for other people that are wanting to grow businesses and stuff. To me, I like to have an understanding of that stuff. I like to really just become a better leader so I can lead those people and help them in life. And so that way they want to stay in business with me and we can do all sorts of fun stuff together. But they can be the super tech wizard or ChatGPT wizard that's going to bring what we need to know daily as it evolves to the table, and we can apply it together and grow our company, add more value through that.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so
I got one more tool. One more tool that I love right now is this Whoop strap. This is what I just got. It's not that new of a tool, but I just got it in the mail the other day. It looks like a watch. It looks like a smaller watch, but I use it for all my health stuff. So it tracks my my sleep habits. It's not too different from an Aura ring.
Yeah,
but I wear one. Yeah, it's got a little more. It's got a little more to it, I think. So it tracks like how stressed I am through the day, how much strain I had today, how much sleep did I actually get, what recovery do I need to think about today, and it actually kind of coaches you through what that could look like in your daily life, and tracks your calories, tracks your heart rate, tracks all the different types of sleep and everything. It's a little bit it can be dangerous if you don't use it appropriately, but it gives you some really good tips throughout the day to be more health conscious, and I'm liking it. It's a good leverage tool to understand more about yourself. Whoop strap, WHOOP. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And if we want one, do you have a referral link, like a Sandy referral link?
I don't think so. Maybe I should. I don't have one. I think it's just Whoop or whoopstrap.com, something like that. And
all right. I'm gonna look it up. We'll put it in the show notes. And if Sandy ends up having one, I'll make sure to link that up in the show notes. But so this is a great segue, because what I was going to kind of pivot into is, when I think of you, I think you're like an athlete disguised as a realtor that's disguised as a high performer. Like there's this, these different layers. And so much. Like, all you have to do, guys, is go on Sandy's Instagram and you'll see this guy's always like training for a triathlon, some run, coming back from some cold plunge, doing something, like always around leveling up fitness. It's such a priority in your life. And so I would love to hear kind of what are some of your non-negotiable disciplines that are on the daily for you.
Good one. This is gonna sound like I'm, depending who's listening to this, that might sound like I'm a little bit crazy, but I've only developed these things over time. They were not like I just woke up and decided to do all these things, and they all happen every day perfectly. But I do have a pretty good regimented morning routine that I have gotten really good at. I'm proud to say I'm really quite consistent with it now, and I actually do it because I love doing it every morning. It's my favorite part of my day. And definitely was never that way prior to maybe the last few years, 5 years maybe. I got really good at this. But my morning routine consists of, I wake up at 5, which is not jaw dropping for some people, but it's a little early for a lot of people when I say that. But I go to bed at 10ish and I wake up at 5. When I wake up at 5, I usually, the first thing I do is I start journaling and I write. Sometimes it's a few thoughts from what I had going on during the night, but without a doubt, it's going to be some sort of gratitude. And I really find that puts me in the right place to start the day. And whatever I'm going to do from there, at least I've gotten myself in a good energy state for the day. I think that's crucial. I think people should be doing that maybe more often than just in the morning. It's a great thing to do before bed too, although I don't have that habit nailed. But the trick to that though, that I really love, and this is something I've been doing for a few years now, is I don't just like sit there and write I'm grateful for, my dog or my cat or my wife for the 100th time. Like that's great to say, but that stuff runs out like eventually. Gets a little dry. So I like to just look for things in the last 24 hours. So I write at least 3 things that I'm grateful for the last 24 hours. And the difference between that and just writing about my family for the, every day is that it forces me now to look for things throughout the day that are, I can put that on my notes tomorrow. And sometimes you have a terrible day and just everything goes wrong, but it still forces you to find a few things of the beauty. Yeah. What are the few things that you took away from that day anyways? And so I love that method of doing it. So I do that. I also, I have a little sequence of what I go through. I talk about what am I grateful for? What am I proud of? So I like to actually tell myself what I'm proud about for myself. Often I do those from the last 24 hours as well. And I think that just reinvigorates kind of your confidence and self-belief. I think that's really important. I talk about why today's going to be great. So I set myself up with a few different reasons why today's going to be awesome. Definitely doesn't always go to plan, but I like to get myself excited for the day. I always write at least one lesson that I learned from the day before. Sometimes that comes out in the gratitude section as well. Another thing I started doing recently, like in the last 6 months, that I love as well, is that I like to turn at least one limiting belief that I've been carrying to an unlimiting belief, and really believe in getting rid of stuff. It's hard to get more. Everyone's always about getting. How do I add on this affirmation or this belief or this? How do I get? But you got to get rid of crap in order to make room for some of that stuff.
Totally.
You can't just. And a lot of people don't do that enough. That would have been a great answer to your earlier question. What would I have done more of in the past or differently in the past? That's earlier, also something I would have done, is I would have focused on eliminating things. Often there's more to be had in eliminating things than adding on more things. And you open yourself up, you get rid of one client that you didn't love working with, and all of a sudden the next great one shows up the next day. Whereas you would have been stuck carrying around the stress of that client you didn't love dealing with, and you would have missed the great client that was there the next day because you would have been dealing with the other one. So you have to remove things in order to make room. And then I end with just a bunch of affirmation statements that I want to ingrain into my mind, and I kind of flip back and forth between like an actual just typical affirmation, or sometimes I write them in questions. So like, why am I so fit and healthy? Well, then I have to answer it with some in my mind, I'll go to answers of what are my habits that I'm doing to make myself fit and healthy. So I like to frame it in that as well. That's my like first.
I love it.
15 to 30 minutes is usually about what that takes me. I'll go quick through the rest. Then I have a little coffee break at that point. I like to earn my coffee, so I earn it through finishing that whole sequence. I love coffee.
I love that.
I do too. Black coffee typically for me, but I love doing that. I do intermittent fasting. A lot of people will be aware of what that is, but I don't eat till noonish typically through the day, so I don't eat anything in the morning. Just black coffee. I like to do some sort of exercise depending on the day. That might be a long run. I've gotten a lot into running over the last few years. So I often will run or do some stretching or weights or something at home. I don't go to the gym very often. I like doing that at home as much as I can. I just find it's a big time commitment going back and forth. Although I'm not going to knock anyone that wants to go to the gym. Any form of exercise is great. Another thing that I love doing, which is there's a lot of versions of these, but I do a little exercise that's I often use. There's a good Tony Robbins video out there. It's called, if you look up Tony Robbins priming exercise, there's like a whole priming sequence that he takes you through, and it kind of gives you his video is 15 minutes long. It's a bit of a spiritual meditation sort of guided sequence around getting energy flowing through yourself, and it's got some gratitude statements in there. It's got some visualization on what's to come and what you're going to be grateful for in the future and what you're grateful for from the past. There's probably other versions of that. I use that video as a guide for that most times, but I really think visualization is important, which is big time. It's being able to see that you're going to, whatever you're working towards in life, whatever is a big goal or a big mission. Everyone's got to go take a similar journey to achieve things in life. You got to go through building the habits that are going to help you get there. You got to create, the person in yourself who deserves that. But then that one of those things that's going to help you shorten that gap and going to help you get you there faster is you really have to form the belief that you've already done it. Like you're not just going towards it. You've already done it. Like top athletes, if you ever study any of them, like I'm a big golfer, so I've studied Tiger Woods and top performers in golf a lot, and I love the applications of sports and business. There's just so many things that are very similar, and Tiger Woods winning all these tournaments, and I know he's got some negative stuff in his life too, but from a athletic, just straight athlete sports performance, he's one of the best ever in any sport, and he knew everything he's accomplished. He had visualized that since he was 7 years old, 6 years old. He knew he was going to do all these things. He's every round, he's playing it in his head the day before. He knows the shots he's going to hit, and it doesn't always go as planned, but it drastically increases your odds of achieving that. So it does,
and the precision of that, when you practice that, the precision happens. It becomes a lot more probable as well. So it's very powerful. So Sandy, I want to ask you, because you brought up limiting beliefs, and I think a lot of people, it's easy to hear it, but without even you're doing this on your own, there's a lot of people that actually need to go through that process with a spiritual mentor, a coach, and really need to be guided through that process. And I actually did episode 3 in my podcast is all on limiting beliefs, but with somebody that is a facilitator. And so this is really, really interesting for me to hear that this is part of your morning routine. And I would love, if you don't mind, just sharing with listeners maybe some of that process of what you do to be able to overcome and release those limiting beliefs.
Yeah, I'm not a spiritual guru or anything around that side of things, but I've studied a lot of great people that I think do cool things, and I've been to enough events and courses and stuff that have an element of this to it, and I think it's really important because it helps you build that belief in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, then whatever you're trying to be good at, you're never going to be that good. If you're trying to sell someone something, the number one thing that person needs to know is that you believe it's a good thing for them. You believe in the product. You believe in the
Totally.
service. If you don't believe in it, then it's going to be a really tough sell to anyone.
Yeah.
And so if you have a long-standing belief that, for me, one of the things that I carried around for a long time, I still have elements of that, was I was a really quiet kid, really shy, really, and I still am. I'm not the most outgoing or flamboyant necessarily person, I don't think, but I've started to see how that's a big advantage to me, rather than certainly a lot of my life was caught up in the fact of it being a negative. And, a lot of people, a lot of other kids, a lot of coaches and things like that would often comment on, oh, you're actually, any interaction in life, this would come up almost all the time. At least in my mind, it was coming up all the time. It was like everyone would comment on, oh my God, you're so quiet. Why are you so quiet? Why are you such a shy kid? Oh my gosh. And all these things. And that was told to myself so many times, including by myself. And that sticks with you. And so that ends up being the story you're telling yourself. Sure. And if that's my belief, then that's a limiting belief that I've carried around for a while. It's one of the ones I try to overcome a lot by telling myself how amazing it is that I'm actually naturally that, and how I have the option to be totally a different person if I want to be. But I found a lot of value in, actually, I guess the lesson I'm trying to say here is, often those limiting beliefs are actually just amazing skill sets or personality traits or characteristics just disguised in your mind as a limiting belief, right? Your worst thing that's ever happened in your life can be the most incredible thing that's ever happened in your life when used appropriately. Sure. And so I try and find the best pieces of that, even if I still am a little bit of a quieter person in general. I know for me that if I am that and people see me as that, then when I come out of my shell sort of thing, and I have that and I'm a little bit more direct with someone, or I'm a little bit more, spirited about something that I'm trying to get across, then I know they're going to believe it even more, because they're like, wow, I don't see him like this very often. This must be a really important thing he's saying. And so, I think that's awesome. I can use that in so many ways in my day to day. And probably someone who's listening to this who has something that they think negatively about themselves could transform that into something positive in a similar way. So that's what I think is the biggest thing, is just transforming that into, how do you make that negative the greatest thing you could ever have?
Well, so, and in everything that you just said, if somebody was to take it a step further, because we're all these unique humans, right? We're all different. Nobody's the exact same. And I think of, as you're talking, okay, and thinking of this maybe more introverted, quiet, yet again, you go on your social media and you're very well spoken, you're very comfortable speaking and with people, you're a great leader. And if maybe people took some of the things that they're afraid of about themselves, or it could be an insecurity, and find that insecurity in somebody else who's incredibly successful, that's out there in the world. And when you see what you think as a weakness or a setback, and you see how successful somebody else is, and you can relate to that, you can start turning that around, going, well, if they're like that, that can also be a positive for me. And so as you're talking, I just kept thinking of Steve Jobs. And I'm like, you're kind of, you could kind of be like that guy who's also really smart. But, I think of he was not wildly outspoken, yet he was so successful. And that really was part of probably one of his superpowers, if he was around today, was, knowing when to talk and observing more. And I'm sure there's a whole list that you've gone through for yourself that, has helped to reframe that message, that narrative that you had on yourself.
Yeah. There's a great book. As I was thinking about this as you were talking, there's a book called Quiet. I think it's called Quiet. Okay. I forget the author. It made a big difference in my life around this topic. It's kind of for anyone who's listening to this and maybe sees themselves similar to me and thinks, oh, you're a little bit introverted, and maybe you don't want to be perceived that way anymore. Well, that's a great book, because it helped me identify. I think they even mentioned Steve Jobs. I know they mentioned Bill Gates as being more introverted people that are that are wildly successful, and how, to utilize that as a great skill versus a limiting factor in your life. And
Totally.
if you're the opposite of that, then you need the opposite sort of approach.
Yeah.
It's not a one size fits all thing, but there's always, I think the best thing about what you just said is there's always a who out there, which is what I mentioned earlier, that who, not how mindset, or who or what, not how. Who do you need to go learn from that has already accomplished this in their life and transformed that limiting belief to an unlimiting belief, and how can you go learn, or who are they, and then what can you go learn through, maybe building a relationship with them, or maybe just reading one of their books, or taking in some content from them. And that would certainly help you kind of start to, I don't know, manifest a little bit of that same spirit in yourselves.
Yeah, I agree. Sandy, I feel like I said, there's so many different things that you and I could spend time talking about. And I definitely need to have you back, because I still have so many things I would love to chat with you about. Before I let you go, because you're on the Freedom CEO podcast, I need to ask you, when you think about being the CEO of your life, you are a CEO in business, but when you think of being a CEO of your life, how has taking ownership over your decisions brought you freedom?
Awesome question. And like I mentioned before, I love that name, because one of the things that's really important to me is freedom. I found a lot of energy in being, having a little more of a freedom sort of approach to life. And however, one of the things that I've been able to do around that is actually be a lot more disciplined to indirectly obtain more freedom in my life, which is kind of counterintuitive, I think, to how people see that. But owning everything that happens to you in your life is a great habit to get into. Getting that habit of, it's not someone else's fault or something's fault, it's always your fault. And just, it can be the worst thing ever possible that's happened to you, the worst circumstances, the worst luck ever. It's always going to be more empowering to make it your fault and not someone else's. And it's absolutely freeing when that is the case, because you have the control over it now. And again, like the silliest, stupidest thing that is, most people would never think of it as being your fault, but if you can just own it and just say it's my fault, what I found is that you really scale yourself up. You can really scale yourself up fast in a lot of these things we've already talked about, your own self-belief, but how others see you just skyrockets through when you start to talk in this sort of thing about how you're taking control of everything and you're owning responsibility. In any sort of a debate about like, oh, who you did this or you did this, and you're kind of bickering back and forth about who should own it, the first person that takes responsibility for it is always going to win that debate.
Right.
They might not win it like right in that moment, but at some point they're going to be the one that wins that argument or that debate or that negotiation. There's so much power in taking responsibility. If I were to give like one tip around this that's really helped me, that mindset has helped. But one thing that I love that I did many times before I actually made one of these that stuck, but I really believe in having your own personal mission and vision statements for your life can be really empowering. And maybe going back and tweaking them from time to time, but just like seeing that every day. That's one of the other things I do in the morning, is I just read through this every single morning. And my mission statement has completely changed in the last little while from what it has been in the past. And my mission statement I read out every day now for myself is to honor God by being the best that I can be and multiplying that greatness out to others. And that's my personal statement. Everyone can be a little different, but as I carry that through my day to day, it really forces me to have accountability and responsibility for everything. And
I love that.
And
are you reading that? Like, when you just said that, is that on like your wall? Like, do you have that visually put out as well?
I have it on my screensaver.
Okay.
I don't think I need to read it because I read it every day.
You know it, but still, it's good to like have this visual reminder. Just even in moments like this, like where it's just that repetition and that reminder. And I love that you just shared that. Thank you.
Yeah,
that is amazing.
My pleasure.
Well, like I said, I've got to have you back on. We have so much more we can chat about. And I know that there's going to be so many cool things that are, I'm sure, going to unfold for you in the next 12 months. So, we'll definitely have to keep in touch and have you come back on. But make sure to follow Sandy on Instagram, catch up with him. He's always talking about what he's learning about, whether it's in life or it's through a book. It's where I usually will get like, okay, that's going to be my next book that I got to read. Like Sandy's calling it in, that's solid. So, and biohacking tips and real estate tips, investment strategies. You're just all around just an amazing human. And I just thank you for your leadership that you display for all of us. So thanks for being here.
Thanks, Shay. I appreciate it. I love that you put on the show. These conversations are really, awesome for me to be part of, and I think your listeners hopefully got some things out of it too. And it's funny how I'm pretty loud on social media for someone who's not that loud of a person. So yeah, I'd love for people to go chat with me on there and connect and reply to things that I post, leave comments, feedback. I love interacting with people online, social media and stuff. So go do that. I'd love that, and I'd love to come back
anytime. Thanks, Sandy. Thanks for tuning into the Freedom CEO podcast. If you got value out of today's show, I would love for you to leave a review, as it will help my show reach other people as well. You know what to do. Download this episode, click the like and subscribe button. If you feel like spreading more love, hop over to Instagram and share today's show in your stories. Remember to tag Shane Vidiata and the Freedom CEO. My DMs are always open, so drop me a line. I'd love to connect. Until next time, keep owning your decisions to live a life of freedom. Live a life you love.